And there it is, the rear tub sitting perfectly on the chassis. Well, this hole alignment is less perfect. And this side is more lesser perfect. And this isn't really perfect either. And there is a slight jiggle. Okay, so it rocks like a late 90s bogan. Let's recap. The rear crossmember had been replaced sometime in the past. It was functional, but a little bit bent inwards at the bottom, so I cut it off, and reattached it so that the back face is vertical, like it should be. I used measurements and shims to level it relative to the chassis, so there is potential for an up and down discrepancy, but otherwise the crossmember is back exactly where it was. And the mounting tabs for the front of the tub were a little rusty, so I repaired them, but likewise I was careful to make sure that their position remained unchanged. So here we are. The tub looks to be sitting on the chassis about right, but the holes don't line up. Well, it's no surprise that the rear mounting tabs are a little out. That just means I got my height measurement wrong by a few millimeters. But this rocking isn't my doing. The tub rests on a part of the chassis that I haven't touched. Now I could just bolt it down. The only problem is that I don't know whether to bolt it down in the rocked or unrocked position. I think the method I used to shim the rear crossmember to the correct height, or incorrect height, has resulted in it being fairly level with the chassis. And if the tub is sitting how it seems to naturally want to sit, I have nice even panel gaps on each side. Okay, I have panel gaps that you could steer a Death Star through, but the point is they're even, which means the tub is sitting level with the rear crossmember, and I think the crossmember is level on the chassis. So that all seems pretty good. However, look at how far the holes are out on this side, compared to the other side. But if I rock the tub, now the holes in the rear mounting tabs are all nice and even. Moving around to the front mounting tab, it's the same thing. With the tub sitting naturally, the holes don't line up. But if I rock it, boom, perfect hole alignment. So it's a choice between the tub looking level or having all the bolt holes line up. And I would just assume that the last guys, who didn't do a very good job of putting the crossmember on before, probably messed up the alignment as well. But they didn't touch any of this. Or did they? It didn't look like anyone messed with it before me, but I could be wrong. Is excessive straightness causing hole alignment problems? Well, I don't know yet. Let's talk Land Rover body alignment. Body alignment is pretty simple. It's a two-step process. 1. Normally the tub doesn't move, so that's 1 taken care of. 2. Make square door holes. The only thing to adjust is the bulkhead. It can move forward and flop around. So you do that until the door holes are square. My issue is that the factory tub position is lost, and I can't work backwards from the bulkhead because the bulkhead flops around. It's the classic chicken and egg scenario. Or egg and chicken. A Land Rover consists of straight lines. If I get this wrong, these lines might end up pointing up at the sky, or down at the ground. So these 2 points are critical. If these 2 points are high or low, I'll be able to make a parallelogram door hole, but not a square. So, without a good starting point to work from, my plan is to roughly assemble the rest of the body, and hope that when everything comes together, it'll become obvious how the tub is supposed to sit. To start with, I'm going to assume that the tub should be fixed in the rocked position, which means all of the holes line up, because that's the way it was before. I think the investigation is over already. It's all coming back to me. It's all coming back to me now. I have wrestled with this door before, and you can see from the pinching in the weather seal that I have never been able to lift it high enough to line up with the tub. With the tub sitting naturally, the bolt holes are wrong, but the body lines up perfect. So someone has messed with this rover more than I thought. And I'm not sure what exactly is wrong around here, but something is wrong. Anyway, hold that thought, because I've found something else that's a little curious. Remember how I said the bulkhead could be adjusted forward? Say if your door hole was too small. Well, you do that by adding washers in here. The bulkhead sits on 2 pins, one on each side, and adding spaces in here simply pushes the bulkhead forward relative to the chassis. On this side, which is bolted hard together, the gap between the bulkhead and the outrigger is about 20mm. But on the other side, the gap is not only different, it's smaller. Someone has modified the bulkhead mounting point to move the passenger side further back. If you have to use an angle grinder to align body panels, that's probably a hint that you're doing something wrong. Anyway, in theory we should see that difference in the door hole size. But we don't. The unaltered driver's side measures about 880mm, and the passenger side, which should be smaller, is actually slightly larger. So why would someone need to take about 10mm out of the length of one side of the body? Maybe it's just that the outrigger is in the wrong place, and somebody had to modify the bulkhead to compensate. But there is something else I noticed. These tabs and these tabs are exactly the right distance apart for the tub to slot in between them nicely. Don't you think that's suspiciously precise manufacturing on Land Rover's part? Well, I expected to see shims in between the front tabs and the tub to take up slop. Maybe the tabs on this chassis just happened to be at exactly the right place, and no shims were needed. I doubt it. Let's get the body out of the way and do some measuring. I've used the book and made calculations, and I'm measuring from the front shock mounts. They give me a clear straight shot through to the back. I calculate that from here through to the back of the rear crossmember should be 110.85 inches. I have no idea how to convert 110.85 inches into inches, so I converted it into millimeters and then used the machinist square to draw a line on my tape measure. As you can see, on the driver's side, the chassis is about 3mm longer than I calculated it should be. Probably not a big deal. But on the passenger side, it's out by more. 12mm to be exact. So here's what I think happened. Some guy needs to fix the back of his Land Rover. He takes the rear tub off. He cuts the rear crossmember off. He puts the rear tub back on, and for whatever reason, the bolt holes in the front mounting tabs don't line up. So he cranks up on one corner until it works, which puts the tub on a bit of a lean. There were probably shims in between the front tabs and the tub, but they vanished. And with no pesky rear crossmember in the way, he bolts the tub in hard against the front tabs, pushing everything back, about 12mm apparently. Then hangs a rear crossmember off the back of the tub, and welds stuff together. Realising he messed up because now there's a massive door gap on the passenger side, he takes to the bulkhead mounting point with an angle grinder, so everything can twist backwards. Job done, cracks a beer. The question is, what am I going to do about it? Well, first of all, these rather ratty outriggers that I was saving because I was worried about losing them as a reference are no longer relevant. So, the back of the chassis is in the wrong place. I think I can correct that without starting again. This orange line on the driver's side and this orange line on the passenger side is approximately what I need to remove to straighten things up. And this is the back of one of the sides you've just seen. See the horizontal cut? I may as well reduce my Death Star sized panel gap while we're here. Okay, let's see how that worked out. Perfect. Now some of you eagle-eyed correctors may have noticed something there. I'll get to that shortly. But first, let's see how the tub fits. Looks pretty good. Notice the tighter panel gap. I was shooting for 6mm. I looked at a lot of photos to see what this gap should be, and 6 or less seems about normal. I don't want to go less than 6, because then the edge of the tub won't function as a drip edge. And in fact, I kind of think 6 looks a little small anyway. But whatever, it's fine. Everything is peachy. Everything is not peachy. I didn't film this part because, well, you know. Let me explain. There isn't an actual problem. The chassis is perfect. The problem is that Land Rovers aren't perfect. I was checking everything, checking the door fit, taking measurements, making sure everything was right, and I noticed that the front of the tub was off center. There was a full inch difference side to side, because the tub is a trapezoid, which means with the doors on, one side of the body is concave and the other side is convex. Now, this is a handmade vehicle. The farmers and forestry workers who bought these new didn't stand around with straight edges checking the lines on their trucks. And I get that. The problem is, I can fix this right now. So of course I'm going to. To get the front of the tub centered, the rear crossmember had to be canted by 5mm. So I added 5mm back into the passenger side. The end result of all my faffing about is that the driver's side is about 3mm shorter than spec, and the passenger side is about 2mm longer. So here we are, for the third time. Nice even panel gaps. Remember how I said I thought 6mm looked a little small? Well, now they're 8, and I think they look too big. The sides are perfect, and so is the top. And have you ever seen door gaps like this on a Land Rover before? Okay, so 4mm is a little bit too tight. The reason I've ended up with such a tight door gap is because I snuck a few millimeters out of the chassis.
2816. 2812.
So, my door holes should be about 4mm smaller than standard. For whatever reason, I think they ended up about 6mm smaller than normal, but that's fine, because I want the option of tighter door gaps. A standard door gap is, well, massive. As it sits, I have door gaps of 4 and 8. The reason that's not an even 6 is because I don't have any more adjustment left in the hinge side. So if I want to run with this, I'll have to modify something around the hinge. If that all gets too hard, I can just push the bulkhead forward by a washer or two. Anyway, that's a problem for later. All I need to know right now is that I'm not going to weld myself into a trap. We're almost there, but I still need to reposition these rear tabs. And remember the ratty outriggers I hacked off? These are new replacements. And the outriggers rightly don't come with tabs attached, so I made these. Obviously the holes are slotted, but ignore that and look at the difference in height. If I made these both the same as the left hand side, guess what? One corner of the tub would have to be lifted up too high. Anyway, I'm putting the tabs in with a couple of washers acting as spacers. That's where the shims go, or probably these washers in this case. And I think that's the last bit tacked in place. Prepare for a welding montage. As you can see, I haven't closed in the tops yet, mainly because I wanted to be able to check the back of the welds. While we're paused, I'll point two things out. First, I was a little worried that the rails might warp like bananas from all the welding. But I test fitted everything, and they're still nice and straight. Second, you can see that I've tapered the edge of this thicker patch down where it meets the thinner chassis steel. I didn't bother to do that on the sides, but I did for the patches on the top and bottom of both rails. I think everything looks good, so let's close these up. And there we are. This could be the end, and I must admit, part of me thinks it should have been. But I decided to add reinforcing plates along each side. I don't really like to layer up steel like this. It only takes one pinhole in a weld, and rust will form between the layers. But I decided to do it anyway. The chassis definitely isn't going to drop in half. Not here anyway. I don't really like the look of an obvious repair, but I'm probably not going to spend my time in an armchair with a glass of wine, gazing over my chassis, assessing its aesthetics. And that's it. Chassis repair done. Oh, by done, I mean no. See you next time.